Hello, I'm John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from downtown Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. And obviously, the people watching us from around the world say, "Oh, we know where Canada is in British Columbia on the west coast, right?" Right. And we are in the center of British Columbia, north-south, east to west. And so today we have a very, very interesting guest. His name is Salvatore Tirabassi. And Salvatore is a seasoned financial professional with over 24 years experience helping business transform financial complexities into strategic clarity. He's a graduate of Harvard and Wharton. He spent 15 years in venture capital, where he gained deep understanding of what it drives companies to succeed. And then the other thing, it was the passion inspired him to launch CFO Pro Analytics, a firm delivery of virtual and fractional CFO. And it's probably a question in some people's mind, what does that really mean? And we'll talk about that as well. Services that dimensionally finance and make it accessible, actionable, and transformative. Now, in particular, what I like about Salvatore is he is a specialist in the area of finance and strategic thinking for people that aspire to go into companies or family organizations to secure their financial strategy as it is going forward. And obviously in North America, but around the world, these are issues that are always important, but in particular where we are now. Salvatore, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So you have an amazing background. Obviously, Harvard, Wharton, it speaks for itself. You've been in the business for 24 years. Give us some of your background. Initially, where you're from, and what motivated you to go in the direction of finance, and especially rising to the level that you do, and it's all the years of experience that you have now behind you.
Yeah, sure. Quickly, I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. My parents are immigrants, which is an interesting concept in these times that we're talking about in the United States. But they came here in the late 60s. I was born here. And I had, pretty much a blue-collar upbringing in the New York City area. Been working since I was 14, and then, or even maybe a little younger than that. And I've always had my eyes on being sort of a professional of some kind. I got involved in management consulting after I graduated from Harvard, and then flipped that into 15 years in venture capital. And then I moved from the investing side to the operating side, helping to build businesses. And now that's pretty much what I do for a living with my firm. Our main business is helping family founder-owned businesses grow and expand with financial strategy and financial operations capabilities that they might not otherwise have access to, based on their size and what their budgets are. We can kind of deliver it to them in a very value-priced, bite-sized chunk that gives them all the meat with no fat.
Yeah. So if you say fractional CFO, and CFO is Chief Financial Officer, obviously the acronym, but fractional sounds interesting to a lot of people. I have an idea what it is, but you say you're delivering virtual and fractional CFO services. What does virtual mean in this concept, and fractional?
Yeah. So virtual isn't really used as a term all that much anymore, because I think everyone's gotten used to working over video now since COVID.
Yeah.
But the fractional piece, which is very commonly used, basically just says like, it's we fill the function on a permanent part-time basis. So it means that, you've got a CFO, but you're only using a fraction of their time each month. But in that fraction of time, they give you pretty much everything that you need from that functional area. And because we deliver it on a part-time basis, we can price it in a way that it fits their budget. And because we're coming in with resources that are highly experienced and talented and follow my firm's methodology, they're getting a very high-end service for what they're paying for.
So correct me if I'm right here, Salvatore, is saying that the CFO function in the corporate structure of an average medium-sized company, if you have to add a specialty of finance or structuring long-term or other complex issues that fall under the umbrella but maybe not have, respectfully, the expertise doesn't lie with the CFO, that you either engaging or employing, you then add the fractional portion to it on a specialty basis in particular. And that may well be for the interim period as you go through growth of some other reason.
Right. Yeah. And usually the finance team is extremely thin, and they don't have anybody that is actually as senior as the people that we bring on board. So typically we're coming in at the top level, and we become the main advisor to the owners or the CEO. And we're part of that C-suite, but we're just there part-time. And then what we do is we take whatever resources they have, systems, and we'll make changes and modifications and additions to them in order to help it all run at a much higher level of performance in terms of like information analysis, speed to closing the books, dealing with lenders, auditors, all that stuff falls under the umbrella. But typically they don't have anybody very senior on the team. That's usually why they call us.
I find that very, very interesting. And you did you start that model like that, after you did a variety of other things where you obviously got a lot of experience, not only from your studies at Harvard and Wharton, but it brought you into a lot of situations that became invaluable for your future, now already being involved for 24 years. And so that you then develop a niche model, because I know there are companies that specialize in this, but it's even more appropriate today than it would have been 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Well, there's a few things I could say about that. The model has existed for a while. I've actually met some fractional CFOs who've been doing this work for over 20 years. I think that with COVID and the comfort that people have gained with video communications, it's opened up the mentality of owners to be willing to take on higher end resources that they may not normally be able to find in their local markets, or to leverage services like ours that are outside of their markets and work with us remotely. So that is a big growth factor. And I think the other thing that happened with COVID is that resources like CFOs got used to working virtually over video. And some of them have made the decision that they would rather run their own little freelance practices and run a business where they're working for a few different clients and have a little bit of variety, and that gives them more work flexibility, et cetera. So on both sides, on the client side, they've adopted work patterns that allow them to work with people remotely. And then the resources that provide the services similarly have a desire to work that way because it gives them a lot more flexibility. So I think that even though the models existed for a long time, with all the technology and behavioral changes that happened during COVID, it's now made the business even more acceptable. And my flavor of it is really comes from a combination of venture capital and growth equity experience in building businesses, and then on the ground CFO experience building and operating businesses, and really combining those two things together to deliver a very high value functional CFO that can handle a lot of the just all of the nuts and bolts of things that are affecting owner operators and family owned businesses, as well as venture capital backed businesses. They just have a different view of what their problems are.
Just interrupting for a second, Salvatore, because the people that are watching us from around the world, this is obviously very, very interesting because the same theories apply globally, really.
Sure.
So just to add to that, then venture capital, I know what it means, but explain to, say that we have a model of a small or medium-sized company that is going into growth, single ownership, and as it does, the requirements change and more specialties are required to make sure at the financial strategic portion, not only financial, but other things relating to growth and development or acquisition for that matter become important. That's where this would fit in. So maybe explain venture capital. What does it mean and growth capital?
So venture capital is can be kind of an umbrella term,
right?
And there's different phases of venture capital. There's a lot of what people view as seed stage investments, which is like brand new ideas that can attract capital because they're going to be hopefully groundbreaking concepts. You can get funded for just ideas and a business plan, but then as you grow and develop your business, regardless of how you got started, there's different levels of venture capital that can fit into what stage business you're in, and growth equity really fits in the later stages when you've already built up a business to a certain level, and now you need capital to grow the company. And typically those investors are looking for some version of profitability that they can, and growth that they can invest in, and then they give you more capital so you can do it better and faster and do more of it.
And so what could happen, say, hypothetically speaking, using my own model a little bit, is that I have 10 different companies. I've been in business for 50 years. I have 4 silos. The one silo is lumber manufacturing. For 50 years, I'm a single owner. I'm doing, we are one of the largest warehousing, distribution, logistic companies in northern British Columbia, and it's growing very fast. Obviously, lumber in manufacturing, we sell in North American market and some offshore, but mainly there. And obviously, we know all the challenges there right now. Then we are also in real estate, residential, commercial, and industrial. We are one of the largest companies there in northern BC. And then the other one is media. And so I'm an author. I'm working on my 6th book. I'm a presenter. And at the same time, I'm obviously very active in podcasting, which I call the new media that changed everything. Sure. And that happened in particular. Media is a good foundation for me because it allows me to raise my profile. Corporately, I have the Brink group of companies under the umbrella or the silos, and all of them have opportunity for growth or expansion. But what happens usually in companies like that, I'm not telling you, you know that for the people watching us that can relate to it, and for you this goes click, 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 click. I know this because that's the model. Financing is usually done fractionally in the different silos, and then at some point along the line saying, looking forward at the overall business plan, where do we go from here? We need capital. Do we consolidate? Do we go to venture finance?
Sure.
And say we have to lay a foundation of financing underneath us that allow us to grow and expand, but at the same time going through difficult times to provide operating facilities, and all of that then during difficult periods now is one example of that. Things become very challenging.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you're dealing with multiple business units as a founder or family-owned business, the complexity expands, right? It's because you might have three, or in your case, you've got 4 different business units, and each one of them's got its own capital requirements. Like the media business probably doesn't need a lot of capital. You make some investment in your equipment and you're spending money on marketing and promotion, but in a lumber business where you've got tons of capital equipment and you've got to worry about storage and inventory, the capital requirements are dramatically different. And so being able to balance those in one umbrella is, it's a very interesting challenge, I mean,
in warehousing is the same, high capital requirement.
Sure.
And to keep it full, and then demands, but the returns are relatively lower than it would be in manufacturing, but still there is a good future. So that's an interesting one. With the media, what you said, not much required, but then we say we want to grow, we want to start a platform. And so that will become interesting. But the model, talk to me about that and saying, okay, I like that business plan, venture capital potentially is saying, okay, I like that element, I like that element, I like that one. So, and then saying, where do we go from here and how do we do that? That's the point where we then, especially today meaning at this moment, being in the economic uncertainty, and particular, for a number of reasons, obviously, destabilization in the Eastern Europe with the Ukraine, Russia, concerns about the ambitions of Russia, obviously, and the chances of an expanding war that may affect other parts of Europe. Middle East has been an ongoing challenge, but in particular now, China, potentially the other complexities around China, and on and on and on and on. So all of those elements are critically important in terms of what's happening. And then the other part, as we sitting here, you and me, having this discussion, the other thing that we are stakeholders in is saying we watch the United States very, very closely politically, been interesting to say the least, and then we watch them financially. What will the Feds do at 2 o'clock this afternoon?
Right, 2 o'clock.
And
Very
so
soon.
we will know in an hour and a half, will it be, the likely will be a reduction in the Fed rate of maybe 25 basis points, maybe 50, maybe 75. But Trump would like to do, he would take as much as 2 or 3%, which is not going to happen because it destabilizes the importance of the dollar. You're the expert, not me, but I'm just kind of looking at. So my speculation would be between 25 basis points or 50, a 0.25% or 0.5%. In Canada, we just announced a reduction of 25 basis points. That brings our Fed rate, if you will, in Canada, our rate down to 2.5%. And there'll be 2 more adjustments.
So you're way below. You're well below where the U.S. is. Yeah.
Correct.
Well, England didn't lower theirs in their recent.
I noticed that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Canada is reasonably stable, right? So So I want you to, because all of those things are important in your life, but they are also important in my life. and not only in terms of lumber, manufacturing, which means housing starts, mortgage rates in the United States, have been slightly reducing in the last couple of weeks, likely in anticipation of adjustments, but I think 30-year rates are now at 6.33% or something like that, where by us, they are much lower than that.
Lower.
Housing starts in the United States, and that's why I watch this stuff, because it affects me, where single-family housing starts are usually around 1.5 million starts. They are now at 890,000 starts, which is the lowest that it has been in God knows how long. So there is investment required. They need housing. The U.S. economy is struggling with, and I'm not political about this, but obviously struggling with, with duties on lumber imports, which doesn't, and whatever we do are in tariffs. And the theory is simply, by informed sources, I believe that no matter what happens, the buyer will pay for the tariffs or the duties directly or indirectly at some point.
Yeah, I am not a big follower of housing starts. I do spend a lot of time talking about tariffs as they relate to China, because we've got a couple of clients that are affected by that. But definitely, the tariffs are a shock to the economic system for any business that has to pay them, and it does it does increase the price to someone at some point. I think so far, at least with the China tariffs, what we've seen is that the suppliers have more or less managed to absorb most of the impact. But that's not necessarily sustainable all the way through the whole retail value chain. With China, I'm talking mostly about consumer goods.
Right.
So at some point, we're going to see prices going up. And I had somebody that I was talking to a few weeks ago. Oh, I was in Utah, and I was in an Uber, and the Uber driver's wife was a manager of a local Walmart, and he said that this was about a month ago, but it had been about a 6-week trend that he had been telling him that they're continually updating pricing in the store and raising them. So they're already going through their cycle of increasing prices, and that was I didn't know this guy. He was just driving the Uber, but what was interesting was he knew somebody personally who was responsible for pushing the prices up in the store and relabeling things. So I think we're at the point where that is already starting to trickle its way through.
Yeah.
And I think reductions in the interest rate at the Fed can have a little bit of offsetting impact on credit card balances, for example, which will help consumers a little bit. Definitely on mortgages, and maybe it'll allow people to refinance their mortgages and create a little bit more cash flow for themselves. But neither one of those are, I think, a complete offset of the increase in prices that will eventually have to trickle through. I mean, it's just a question of time. And I think if rates continue to come down over time, which is I think what everybody's waiting for at 2:00, is forget about this cut. What's going to happen on the next one?
Correct.
What's the direction going to be?
Correct.
That there could be some offsetting economics that help the consumer in the U.S.
Confidence, right?
But I mean, if it happens over time, it's going to be a slow progression of improvement of the consumer balance sheet.
Correct.
And prices will continue to pricing at the retail level is going to continue to have to absorb some of the tariff. So, so that's kind of my experience dealing with it. Is again in that consumer products area.
Yeah. I'm not the expert. You're the expert more than I am, but I watch it because it's part of our lives, and part of my company's their well-being is that. But surprises me always. Touch a little bit on the politics of it. That tariffs have been tried for many times before by different governments, both left and right wing governments, and all of them have proven to be not successful in terms of their attempts to reduce the import of finished goods and to do the manufacturing, either in the United States in particular. And so obviously we've gone through that now again, and then saying, but how does it look as we go forward? And I'm asking you this just simply because it's on our mind and on the minds of many other people's. At what point will we see a change of direction under the Trump government? There will be in midterm next November, I believe, and there is a selection on the House and the Senate where the control of government is mainly in the White House now. If that changes, maybe there is a change of direction, but it will be a difficult period we look at from looking forward from a Canadian producer, working in North America. It will be difficult for the rest of the year, probably at least until sometimes in the first quarter of 2026. And then the other part that I believe in the 60 years that I've been watching business and the 50 years that I've been in business, I think the most perfect model of success as a region is the combination of Canada with the location and all its resources, in combination with the United States, and the combination with Mexico, working together as three countries that have done that successfully, with hiccups here and there, but relatively speaking, that a lot of my clients, a lot of my friends, I watch U.S. television. We're so close together that we are virtually one, and immensely able to be very, very influential globally for the benefit of all of us in North America, and becoming a leader as we have been. And the reason that I say that, Salvatore, is that I was born in 1940. In another month, I will be 85 years young, I say. And so...
Yeah, you look great.
So, and I've seen far too much that I should not have seen during the war years. I remember we were liberated April the 12th, 1945, by the Canadian Army that was part of the Allied forces that landed in June of 1944 in the United States, Canada, and the UK on the beaches of Normandy. The Canadians went north, and the US and the UK went to the other locations, and they liberated Europe. And it had such an impact on me when we were liberated as a 5-year-old by the Canadian Army that I always knew we had gone through a very, very difficult time, nothing to eat. When Hitler, stopped all the food traffic into Holland, and a lot of young kids and older people that were vulnerable died. And I still can feel the hunger. My brother, my sister, myself,
Sure.
Every morning we would go with gunny sacks in the railroad yards, pick up anything edible and burnable.
Sure.
I can still feel it now. But then I said that when I grow up, I want to go to the land of my heroes, Canada, and I did. And then the other thing that always stand in my mind is that in 1947, when Europe was trying to rebuild from this devastating war, and wars are devastating to people, the Marshall Plan was developed and led by the United States and other countries like Canada and UK, again, together working at rebuilding Europe, and it brought us together as the democratic countries around the world that had the objective of working together, step in where help was required, and and that is the example of what I still see today, as that it affected and benefited my life and most of my life.
Sure.
And the danger now is that we are, I'm not being political about it, but saying that I still see the strength of going forward. Canada, the United States, Mexico, together, we can be immensely powerful for the benefit of everybody in those countries working together. And that's what I like to see.
Yeah. Well, so it's interesting. My parents are your age, and they're actually exactly your age. One is 1 year older than you are, and they both were war children in Italy, which was occupied. My both of their towns were occupied by the Germans after the
Mussolini
fell.
Yeah.
And your story is exactly their experience. They couldn't eat. They didn't live in their houses. They were impoverished for many, many years. And who came and kind of cleaned up the mess for them? It was in their case, it was mainly the U.S. soldiers that moved up the peninsula to get to where they were to liberate everybody.
Yes.
And and then they came here in the late 60s with an opportunity, to be part of a more of a thriving economy. And they had, the later part of their life, when they were in their 30s and started having children here in the U.S., were good. They contributed immensely to society, and have had a good life as a result of it. But it's all the pieces that were put in place before they got here that enabled them to come to the U.S., get jobs, be contributors to society. And it's funny, when I think about my parents, they speak a functional level of English, and they lived most of their life in a community where they were English speaking at work and Italian speaking in their community.
Yeah.
Which and no one really had a problem with that.
No.
Back then, and they definitely learned English because they needed to be functional, with their work. But they're far from perfect English speakers, but they're good, solid Americans, if you ask me. They worked hard their whole lives.
They are the example. Like for me, saw far too much that we should not have seen. Seen people dragged out of their houses, never to return, and on and on and on. And even now, still today, I'm still affected by PTSD from those years. Got counseling in my 50s, for the inner child. That's very emotional. Still,
it's very, very difficult. Yeah,
and then came here in July of 1965. Couldn't speak the language, didn't know a soul, didn't have a job. And so, but my dream was to go to Canada. And then academically, I was not a successful story. I failed grade 3. I failed grade 7 3 times. And then they said to my parents, they said, "What's he going to do with this guy?" and some people said, send him to the mentally challenged school. They said, no, we're not going to do that. So I got a job in the furniture factory, a friend of my dad, at 12 and a half years old. And so,
Right.
and I loved it. And then my dream was, I always knew I was just as smart as the other guys, girls, and so not smarter then. And then I knew that once I go to Canada, I wanted to build a lumber mill, and then I wanted to start with nothing. So when I took I took a suitcase from Holland in 1965, in July of 1965. I had a suitcase, 3 books, and 2 sets of clothes. And then, so I knew I wanted to go to British Columbia. That's where all the trees are. So I landed in Montreal, took the train across Canada, 4 days, 5 nights. My God, that is a long way. And so when I landed in Vancouver, I went to the immigration department. Fortunately, there was a German fellow there, and I could speak some German. I told him I wanted to build a lumber mill. He said, go to Prince George, 500 miles, 800 kilometers north of there. So that's what I did. I came out, and I'm still here 60 years later, but I work all over North America. But I can still see where the railroad, where the Greyhound station was. And I came off the bus, couldn't speak the language, didn't know soul, didn't have a job. I had my suitcase, the 3 books, and 2 sets of clothes, and I counted my money at least 3 times. I had $25.47. So that's what. But the one thing, the other point with me was that attitude is that even till today, I've always done that. I'm always positive. Don't even come close to me if you're negative. We're the luckiest people in the world. Passion. Whatever I do, I give it 125%. And then the other one is work ethic. Even today at 85, I work harder than anybody around me. I wake up at 5:30 in the morning. I always make my bed, and I always think I'm late. And so the other question that you likely will have is that, what were the 3 books that you took? And that gives you an indication of what was in my mind, is that I've always listened, even as a young person, to people that were successful, in business in particular. And so the one book that I took was Management by Drucker in Dutch. And so,
Wow.
and the other one was Logical Thinking, and then the other one was about Canada. And so that always stayed with me, and I always did that even then when I was here learning the language. And then, so the other part about me was that I was born in the northeastern part of Holland, in the province Groningen, and it's about 10 minutes from the German border, and we speak a dialect there. And I love speaking dialect, but if I speak dialect, the other people in Holland say, "No, this is a farmer. He comes from that." Yeah, they are.
Right.
So then I was drafted into the Air Force when I was 18, 2 years mandatory, not anymore now. It was actually very good for me. So then I had to learn to speak High Dutch. And I barely got that part under control. Then I'm on the on the plane to Canada. I have to learn to speak English. So the benefit that I likely had is that I came alone, and so I had no choice to really integrate or go graduate. It was just me, and right from the beginning, I knew I would build a lumber mill. And then from there, and that's what I did, and then grew it into now 10 different companies, and all the challenges along with it, and and I really enjoy it. And so the point that I was making is this one, Salvatore, is that I fly around a lot, do a lot of business in the United States, and when I fly around, I sit by the window and I look at the window and I said, it's paradise. It is paradise. Us collectively, in Canada, the United States, and we are in paradise. And so we are so lucky for all the things that, if people have any illusions, respectfully, that if you're going through war like your parents did, I did, and then when the war is over, everything goes back to normal. No, it doesn't. It can take generations. And so
absolutely.
Giving back to me has always been very, very important.
Yeah, that's a great story.
So it brings me back to you.
Yeah, sure.
So your parents are they doing okay, or so the
Yeah, they're good. They are pretty healthy Mediterraneans. So they eat they eat a little bit of pasta, drink some wine, have fish, you know, get their Italian bread, and they can sustain themselves at a very, very good level.
very
So
conscientious? Usually Mediterraneans, Italy part of that, very conscientious of diet and what they eat, and so and so do we.
yeah, they want me to eat a lot, but they don't eat a lot.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
if you can understand that. If I go to their when I visit with them, you know, it's immediately like how much food can they put on the table
Yeah, yeah,
for
yeah,
me and my family, you know.
yeah.
But yeah, they are conscientious about it.
So let's talk a little bit more about saying, so one of the first questions that I had for you is that what is in store for the entrepreneurs in the next 4 years under Trump?
Uh, I think there's a couple things. I think one is, you know, the tax changes or the permanent taxes changes that I keep saying tax changes, but the making the original Trump tax cuts permanent for small entrepreneurs is pretty beneficial. There's a lot of additional, it creates a lot of additional cash flow for them so that they can reinvest in their businesses. And I'm talking about, you know, just anybody who, you know, wants to start their own business or, you know, is already in a business that's relatively small. You know, the whole concept of qualified business income tax credits is, you know, advantageous to small business owners. Um, I think the other big thing, though, which is not so much related to the administration directly, but will be affected by them, is what's the regulations going to be like on AI, and how is AI going to be adopted and used by entrepreneurs and small business owners?
And again, for the
And
people watching us, AI is artificial intelligence, which
yeah,
will change our lives equal, if not more so, than computers did in the early 80s. It will become
oh,
part of everybody's life.
it's going to be a much bigger change than that, and it's going to happen a lot more quickly.
Exactly.
And I think that the you know I mean the administration is very you know their business regulations. They're really trying to reverse a lot of the aggressive regulations that were put in place under the last administration. So I don't anticipate that they're going to have you know anything that's going to slow down AI. I think the question is going to be for entrepreneurs and small business owners is how do they get educated about using it and uh, leveraging applications that can make their business go faster. And they're going to need to do that because everybody, you know, it's a zero sum game, right? If you're not doing it, somebody else is doing it, and then your business is going to suffer as a result of it. So that'll be the big thing that's going to happen, mainly in terms of new business creation and the sustainability of businesses that are more traditional. And there will be some businesses that are relatively insulated from it
Right.
inside their four walls,
Right.
but externally, their suppliers and their consumers or whoever's buying and selling to them will be affected. So no matter what, you've got to be knowledgeable about it.
So how do you can, and that was my question, how then does the average individual globally, because this affects us globally, how do they become informed other than looking at Google, or is there any, what else can they do?
You
Because,
know, I, I have a very basic advice on that front,
right,
which is that you most definitely have a smartphone. You probably have a laptop. download the free version of 2 or 3 LLM, which are large language models. This is like what's known as ChatGPT, or Anthropic has Claude. Google has Gemini, and X, which is formerly Twitter, has Grok. Download 2 of those and just start using them, and just familiarize yourself in, like, you can basically ask it questions, and the more you use it, the more you start to realize, like, how you can leverage it. It's what's amazing about it is that it's doesn't require lessons to know what value you can get out of it. You just need to have it available and start using it, and then you'll immediately find efficiencies in it. I mean, I can give you like a very simple example that I just did today, right? I get a lot of emails, and I personally happen to be an inbox 0 person, which means at the end of the day, my inbox has to be completely cleaned out.
You're very
That's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
But I was realizing that I get a series of emails that are related to networking events from different sources. And I said, I really don't want to read, the Connecticut Business and Industry Association email, and the biotech entrepreneurs email, and the Ivy League networking events email. So I have subscriptions to both Claude and OpenAI, which is ChatGPT, and I use them for slightly different purposes. This time I used ChatGPT because they have a little bit more functionality that allows them to create a live agent for you. And I went to ChatGPT and I said, here's the events page for these 5 networking organizations. I want you to read the events page once a week and send me one digest of all the events across all 5 organizations in one email.
Yeah.
And it did the work, presented me a pop-up to connect my Gmail account. And now once a week, I'll just get one digest that'll show all the events. And then the next thing I'll have it do is I'll probably tell it to create a filter for locations, and to maybe even tell it what my interests are, so that it puts them in a list that's kind of organized, with the ones that are probably most important to me at the top. Right. So I'll do that next. After I start getting a few emails, I'll see what they look like, and then I'll just give it some more instructions, and then it'll do that for me. So very simple thing, but it's just out there operating now.
So then the next question, Salvatore, is there I am at 85 years old within a month. And so all this technology that has happened since I grew up and your parents did have gone through. There were really no televisions. Other than the one, I always remember the first television in a little hometown. It was snowing a lot, and in there you could see figures moving and I'm saying, "Oh my God, this is exciting! It's a soccer game, and it's snowing and snowing." And then obviously we got to where we are now, and then the next thing is radios and portable radios and a little small box, and on and on and on. I can take you through it. And then we had cell phones, and the one that I had that was about this, it's a shoe size and blah, blah, blah. And then computers and all the other things. Then email, blah, blah. So there has been so much transition through my life, your parents' life. But I still feel today that I'm still there. I'm interested in AI. I use it to a certain extent, and I love it, and it will become part of it as we go forward. I agree with you, will become beyond what we have seen. It will affect everybody, and it will be very beneficial. You have to be informed on it if you're looking for career directions. If you're older, try it, and then if you and it will have a very, very beneficial effect. And then the other part about media, I'd like to have your opinion about that as well, is that as I watch the media, US, CNN, ABC, on, and then Canada, BBC, or CBC, and then UK, BBC, I watch it all. But they're all coming down further and further and further in viewers. The same as newspapers. The new media is virtual. And I believe the power of podcasting is immense, because here you can see you and me are sitting here, you speaking from the other side of the United States, on the east coast of the United States. I'm sitting in central British Columbia, Canada, talking about topics that are very familiar to us and exchanging views in this hour. And at the same time, we probably have, so, and I'm not bragging about it, probably I'm approaching 1 million subscribers on YouTube, and that usually means that could be as many as 1 million, 2 million people watching us from around the world.
Sure.
Immensely, and it's only on a beginning. So that's the new future, in my opinion. Hence, for me, in terms of modeling on my businesses, I'm looking at a platform at some point. But will it look like at this point, I'm not sure. But it will, have similarities to the things that I'm already doing. But some other topics globally, it offers business opportunities likely.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that, the podcasting model, there's a lot of, experimentation and, entrepreneurs who are trying their hand at it. But I think the ones that obviously can scale and get to an audience, they obviously have a point of view and a format that resonates with an audience. And it basically gives, people who normally wouldn't be involved in that aspect of media, say as a talking head, the opportunity to basically become that and, allow them to explore topics and points of view and share their own points of view on things. And, it's a democratization of media in a lot of ways, as is just in general, the general YouTube content that's out there these days. I think, I heard a statistic recently, and I don't remember it exactly, but I think it's mainly males who are kind of like probably a little younger than I am to a little older than I am. Most of the television viewing that they do in their living room is YouTube on an internet connected TV, and they're watching topics of interest. So like, when I'm done for the day and I've gotten my mailbox to zero and I am ready to cut it off, I'll watch a little bit of news, but then I flip my YouTube feed on and I've got like a variety of things that come through there. I've got sophisticated presentations on math. There's a lot of general theory of relativity. Lately, I've been getting a lot of like Webb telescope discussions about how far the universe is. And then I get things like digging your own well, and I'm a curious guy and I'm never going to dig a well, but I'm a curious guy. I'm probably never going to dig a well, but I'd like to see somebody do it and understand exactly how it works. So this is all original content that until YouTube became what it is and internet TVs are in people's living rooms, you would not necessarily be experiencing this type of information sharing and content. So I'm personally a fan of it. I enjoy it.
And just like you and me, they were sitting here speaking together for an hour. I saw your bio. You're very smart individual. You probably looked at my bio already, somewhat to see who this guy is. But Debbie had this amazing, in my mind, and I'm sure you liked it as well, conversation.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we will release it within 2 hours. It will not be edited. I haven't done any editing on any of the ones that I did, 465 episodes. And the only time that we were thinking, or somebody suggested maybe we should edit it, when I was introducing a guest and all of a sudden our building started shaking. We had a 4.6 earthquake, and we said, we'll leave that in too. And so we did. So the Salvatore, it was an amazing podcast. We could have gone on for another hour. At some point I have to bring it back again because it's so amazing.
I would love to. Yeah.
And so for all the people watching us, subscribe to us, both Salvatore and myself. Have you got a website or so, Salvatore, that people can contact?
My website is CFO Pro Analytics.com, all one word, CFO Pro Analytics.com. And if you just Google me, you can easily hop to my LinkedIn page, and there's a connect button there, and you can connect with me on the website as well. But happy to hear from your audience and get to know who some of your listeners are.
And do you do international business as well, or is it? It's probably mainly United States, but
yeah, it's mainly in the U.S. I mean, I have talked to some people in Canada, but haven't done any business in Canada. But it's mainly U.S. based.
Okay, I'll probably will be talking to you at some point about this. Yes. So subscribe to us. Contact Salvatore. If you like it, share it with others. Make comments so that we can make our podcast even better. The ones that I do is on different topics right around the world. And again, Salvatore, it was a privilege to have this discussion. Say hi to your parents.
I will, for sure. I'm going to tell them that I met someone from their generation who experienced the war. You know, I guess how far is that? Probably like 500 miles?
Something like that.
Probably, maybe like 800 miles away.
Yeah, it's not far away.
Much closer. Yeah.
From here to Vancouver, maybe 500 miles. You know, we say, let's go to Vancouver for the weekend. Are you kidding me? You know, go on Saturday, come back on Monday. Yeah. So, but distance are so much different here. Salvatore, it was a privilege.
Great meeting you.
You know, let's make sure we stay in touch. This one will be released within 2 hours.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Bye.